The judge, is there a certain case that you still think about today?
I get upset even thinking about it. I felt crumbled at that moment. I've never forgotten that. To this day, and I was on the bench for 38 years, I still think of that case. It's my first day on the bench. I was on the bench and I asked my dad, who was maybe the most decent man I ever met in my life. And so I said, Dad, why don't you come down and view me? I'm sitting on the bench today for the first time. And a woman came before me who had 3 kids. She owed, I think, I don't know, $300 worth of parking tickets. And she said, I just can't pay them, I don't have the money. And I said, well, maybe I can place you on a payment program. She says, you can pay me on a payment program, but I can't pay anyway. So I said, okay, fine's $300, see the clerk, and now if you don't pay, your car's going to get booted. So court's over. And I said, Dad, how did I do? He said, Frank, that woman, he says, you find her. I said, Dad, she was arrogant, she was rude. He said, she was scared. You should have talked to her. You should have understood her problems. You can't treat people like that, Frank. And I can tell you, without fear of contradiction, it never happened again after that.
Sometimes a single person in power can change the way we see justice, kindness, and humanity. Judge Frank Caprio wasn't just another man in a robe, he became a global icon of compassion. Millions tuned in not for courtroom drama, but for something far more rare, empathy. And now with his passing in 2025, the world is left remembering the judge who ruled with his heart as much as with the law. But how did a small-town judge from Providence, Rhode Island, capture the attention of millions worldwide? And what moments made him unforgettable? Let's look back at the life and legacy of Judge Frank Caprio, the man who proved that justice doesn't have to be cold. Humble beginnings. Frank Caprio was born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1936, the son of Italian immigrants. His father worked as a milkman and fruit peddler, while his mother dedicated her life to raising their family. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was rich with lessons about humility, kindness, and hard work. Caprio grew up with a sense of responsibility to his community. He wasn't born into power, wealth, or privilege. He worked his way up, first as a teacher, then as a lawyer, and finally as a judge. His life was proof that greatness isn't reserved for the elite. It can be built step by step with dedication and heart. And it was this grounded upbringing that shaped the judge the world would one day come to know. The rise of Caught in Providence. Caprio was appointed as a municipal court judge in 19... At first, his courtroom was just another small-town legal space handling minor offenses like parking tickets, traffic violations, and city ordinances. But in the mid-1990s, local television began broadcasting snippets of his cases. What started as a niche program quickly became a phenomenon. Caught in Providence. This wasn't your typical courtroom show filled with shouting and confrontation. Instead, viewers saw something profoundly different. Caprio listening, understanding, and often forgiving. The internet later turned his clips viral. People across the world, whether from Nigeria, India, Brazil, or the US, found themselves captivated by the little moments of mercy he handed out daily. But what exactly made his approach so powerful? The judge of compassion. In an age where most courtrooms feel intimidating, Frank Caprio flipped the script. He treated everyone before him, rich, poor, young, old, with dignity. If a struggling single mother stood before him unable to pay a fine, he'd wave it with a smile. If a child appeared in court, he'd often invite them up to help make the judgment. Sometimes he'd say, I'm going to let the people decide, what do you think I should do? And just like that, justice wasn't just about punishment, it became about mercy, humanity, and second chances. These viral moments weren't staged, they were real, and that's what made them so moving. Viral fame and global impact. By the 2010s, Judge Caprio had become a global internet sensation. Clips of his rulings received hundreds of millions of views across YouTube and Facebook. For many, it was the first time they'd seen a judge act not as a cold authority figure, but as a mentor, a teacher, even a grandfatherly figure. His courtroom felt less like a legal chamber and more like a living room where kindness ruled above all. He received messages from fans around the world, people who said his compassion restored their faith in humanity. Frank Caprio wasn't just a local judge anymore. He had become a symbol, personal life and legacy. Despite the fame, Caprio never let it change him. He remained deeply connected to his family, his community, and his faith. Married for decades, with children and grandchildren, he often said that family was his proudest achievement. In later years, even after announcing his battle with cancer, Caprio continued to inspire people by staying positive, hopeful, and full of gratitude for the life he had lived. His passing in 2025, that Judge Frank Caprio had passed away at 88 years old, the world felt a collective loss. Social media flooded with tributes, clips of his most touching rulings resurfaced, and millions shared personal stories of how watching him had inspired them to treat others with more kindness. He may have been just a municipal court judge in Rhode Island, but his influence reached far beyond that courtroom. Frank Caprio showed us something rare, that justice and kindness can live side by side, that the law doesn't have to be harsh to be respected, and that sometimes one small act of compassion can echo across the world. He wasn't a Hollywood actor, a rock star, or a billionaire mogul, but Judge Caprio will be remembered as something far greater, a man who proved that kindness, even in the smallest of places, can make someone a legend. So tell me, what's your favorite Frank Caprio moment? Was it the time he forgave a struggling mother, or when he let a child decide the verdict? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear. And if you want to keep celebrating the lives of legends like Judge Caprio, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, because more stories like this are coming your
A very
way.
difficult period. Unfortunately, I've had a setback. I'm back in the hospital now. And I'm coming to you again, asking you to remember me in your prayers.